Representative Carroll is going to present the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program Bill, House File 3946. So Representative Carroll moves House File 3946 be laid over for possible inclusion. And I see there's also an author's amendment coded the A2. Representative Carroll moves the A2 to get the bill in the shape he would like. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. With that, Representative Carroll, would you like to tell us about your bill?
I sure would. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Appreciate the opportunity to bring forth this bill and talk about it. It'll strengthen and modernize the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy, or CPACE program, in Minnesota, incorporate national best practices that have developed in the industry since we first established the program in Minnesota more than a decade ago. CPACE financing has been a highly successful program for Minnesota's commercial real estate borrowers, improving our building stock and providing long-term, low-cost, fully private financing to building owners. Over 400 projects have been completed since the program's inception, bringing over $320 million in private investment to our state. In recent years, however, Minnesota is falling behind other states in the total volume of CPACE projects being undertaken, primarily due to our now outdated enabling legislation, which contains restrictions not found in other states, which have more recently enacted a CPACE program or modernized their legislation. Last year, Minnesota ranked 5th in the country for total CPACE project volume, behind California, Ohio, Texas, and Florida. There were 28 CPACE projects closed in our state last year, down from 53 projects in 2022. The proposed amendments to Minnesota's CPACE legislation will make this program more accessible to commercial property owners for a wider range of projects. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to turn it over to testifier.
Thank you. And we have Rafi Goldberstein,
Yes.
Executive Director with the PACE Loan Group. Welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and present your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Acom. Thank you, Representative Carroll and committee members for allowing me to testify in support of House File 3946. My name is Rafi Goldberstein, and I am the CEO of PACE Loan Group. We are the only private lender, PACE lender headquartered in the state of Minnesota. We financed over $100 million of PACE projects across the state, including the Treasure Island Center in St. Paul, industrial projects in Sartell and Hutchinson, workforce housing in Cloquet, senior living in New Prague, hotels in Owatonna's, to kind of name a few. Our team are leaders in PACE nationally, and we hold leadership positions on both of the PACE trade groups, the CPACE Alliance and PACE Nation. PACE has always enjoyed bipartisan success in Minnesota and nationally because the program is structured to allow private property owners access to private dollars to improve local building stock without the use of taxpayer funds. Back in 2010, Minnesota was one of the first states to pass PACE enabling legislation. And there have been amendments to the statute over the past 14 years to meet the needs of property owners and their ability to access PACE capital for their buildings. The purpose of this amendment is to bring the Minnesota PACE statute in line with national best practices. First, the bill expands property owners' access to PACE financing by allowing for the financing of additional building resiliency measures, water conservation measures, and performance measures to help commercial properties withstand extreme weather events and mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. This expansion will bring Minnesota in line with newly passed PACE legislation across the country. Additionally, this amendment will explicitly allow developers to finance projects necessary to reach the state's goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions for commercial real estate. These upgrades and improvements are costly, and the fixed rate, lower cost of PACE assessments, PACE loans, enable property owners to afford these improvements, and these upgrades will help lower property insurance costs, increase property values, and harden their assets. Second, the bill removes the cost effectiveness requirement, which limits overall project sustainability achievement and prevents projects like building electrification and decarbonization. The cost effectiveness requirement is currently one of the largest inhibitors to blocking PACE capital from reaching large-scale development projects across the state. There are a wide array of energy and resiliency measures that reap large environmental and societal benefits which fail to meet the cost effectiveness test. For example, developers building to develop net zero buildings or all-electric buildings currently cannot do so with CPACE funds because it would fail the cost effectiveness test. PACE should be a tool to help finance the next generation of building technologies and methods, but in Minnesota, we fail to live up to that goal because of the standard. Nearby states such as Wisconsin and Michigan have recently removed their cost effectiveness requirements from their legislation. Lastly, we are currently what folks refer to as the state of the 20s, meaning that we cap our PACE financing at 20-year terms and 20% loan to values. These are the lowest caps in the nation. About 3/4 of the states that have PACE programs would be considered states of the 30s, meaning that they allow 30-year assessments and 30% loan to values. This amendment would bring us in line with best practices seen across the country. And I will note that states that do not have the 30s will just simply not have caps at all. Minnesota, according to data collected by PACE Nation and the CPACE Alliance, is a top 5 PACE state. However, with high interest rates, property owners need the longer 30-year terms to pay back their loans. This, for example, is the same reason why I have a 30-year mortgage on my house instead of a 20-year mortgage on my house. I simply could not afford to have a 20-year amortization schedule on my house. Similarly, in the current market, property owners are finding it difficult to find lenders willing to fund their projects. So increasing the limit to 30% loan to value serves as a critical gap filler to get projects to the finish line. To illustrate how being a state of the 20s is taking away from the usefulness of PACE in Minnesota, in 2021, PACE Loan Group funded 21 PACE projects in the state. Last year, we did a similar amount. Excuse me, in 2022, we did a similar amount. Last year, with high interest rates and tightening credit markets, we only financed 3 projects across Minnesota. All of our other PACE projects were in other states where the PACE parameters did not restrict us to 20 years or to 20% loan to value. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I appreciate your consideration and support for House File 3946.
Thank you. Looks like we have some questions from members. Representative Bierman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rep. Carroll, for bringing the bill forward. I have a question for Mr. Goldberstein here on how does a business know if they qualify? You mentioned that I think there's some feasibility studies required to be eligible, and who do they start with to determine if they qualify?
That's a great question. The statute does require an energy audit to be completed. So every PACE project that gets done in the state does have a third-party energy audit conducted. The St. Paul Port Authority acts as the administrator for PACE in the state of Minnesota. So all projects do go through them, both as a process, but also as another set of eyes to make sure that it is qualifying and has the requisite audits that are needed. So for folks that are looking, the St. Paul Port Authority would be a good first place to stop.
Representative Carroll, did you have something else? Did you want to add? No?
No.
Okay. Representative Bierman, do you have follow-up?
I do, thanks. So you mentioned the PACE Loan Group, which you're part of, had only 3 projects in Minnesota the last year. So how does that work with the PACE Loan Group? Do you actually finance these, or do the individual businesses go to their local bank ultimately to be setting up a credit and payback?
Mr. Goldberstein.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are what we refer to as direct lenders, meaning that the money that we're lending is, they are private funds. And so the loans that we write sit on our balance sheet. We are not effectively brokers. We're not arranging financing and then selling it to someone else to close. These are loans that we are writing with our funds and holding on our books.
One more.
Representative Bierman.
So then, thinking in terms of payback and, so I was also wondering about when you go in and do an energy audit for a building, maybe the entity and owners think they have something in mind they want to do. Do you do a cumulative audit over the entire building on all types of energy services and needs, and then come up with a plan that you would suggest? Or is it more owner involved where they say, I want to put solar panels on my rooftop and I don't want to do anything else? How do you handle that?
Mr. Goldberstein.
Thank you. When we approach for that scenario, we largely will follow the guidance from our clients. And so folks will come to us and say, hey, I want to make my property more energy efficient. What do you suggest, given your experience in the field? In which case, we are happy to provide suggestions to how they can increase their building standards. Other people come to us and say, hey, I'm a private developer. This is a source of funds I can use to finance my project. Here's what I'm building. Hard stop. Do I qualify for PACE or not? So we deal with both depending on what the client's looking for.
One more question.
Representative Bierman.
So, are you a nationwide company working in all states, or are there some states you're focused more on? And, what area of the country are you seeing the most business from?
Mr. Goldberstein.
We are a nationwide lender, so wherever PACE is enabled, we do lend, and PACE is enabled on a state-by-state basis. Where we are primarily focused, and we truly do lend coast to coast. Because we're based in Minnesota, I'd say we have a fairly large footprint across the Midwest. So, we do a lot in Minnesota, we do a lot in Wisconsin, a lot in Michigan, a lot in Nebraska, but it could take us, we're closing a deal tomorrow in Alaska, for example. We go wherever our clients take us.
Thank you.
Great. Next, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then my question would be to the testifier. So you mentioned that you have done three loans in Minnesota last year. Are there other entities, other banks that are essentially in this market as far as doing PACE loans, and are they doing loans in the state?
Mr. Goldberstein.
Yeah, so Minnesota's an open market, so anyone can participate in PACE. There are local banks and credit unions, for example, Spire Credit Union, they are large originators and holders of CPACE. I think the distinction is that they tend to do smaller balance programs and shorter term programs. And so the other projects that were done in the state were probably average loan sizes of less than $1 million is my guess.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just how many PACE loans do you think are being done per year in Minnesota?
Mr. Goldberstein. Do you have
I'd have to
any
get
idea?
back to you. I would think that in a more typical year outside of 2023, we'd probably see somewhere in the realm of 30 to 40, no less, per year.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the answers you gave was that the average, maybe from a Spire standpoint, would be less than $1 million. What would be your average loan amount through year 3 that you did?
Mr. Goldberstein.
I'd say that for us, when we're looking at deals less than $1 million, we would often refer people to the local banks. So we don't have an average per se, but there's a certain minimum where we'd probably refer folks to smaller institutions.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How large were the 3 that you did?
Mr. Goldberstein.
On average, they're probably between $2 and $8 million.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Swazinski.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And then was the length of the loan that you're allowed to give for those larger projects a limiting factor? And then what kind of projects do you think you would be able to capture with the increased, by eliminating the cost effectiveness requirement and then also increasing the length? How large do you think of loans do you think would be captured by your entity if this was to pass?
Mr. Goldberstein.
I think I captured most of the question, but the 30-year amortization and the 30% loan to value would significantly increase volume in 2 considerations. One is just from a 30% loan to value perspective, you're just going to see larger deals in general. So for example, we wrote a $20 million PACE loan on the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Minneapolis. So, we can do 20, 30, 40, $50 million PACE loans. That obviously increases with the loan to value consideration. The other consideration is the 30-year amortization significantly makes the underwriting easier to achieve when you're able to amortize that PACE loan over 30 years as opposed to 20 years. So we will see significantly more properties qualify for PACE than they currently do by expanding to 30 years. To give it an exact range of dollar amounts, it's hard to say. It really is a very wide spectrum.
Representative Susan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to finalize, you mentioned a couple times that you keep these loans on your books. Do you not tranche these projects and sell them? Or do you actually keep them on your books?
Mr. Goldberstein.
They're actually on our books.
Okay.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you had said that the reason that there's challenges is because we in Minnesota care about it being cost effective and because of the year of the loan, 20-year versus 30. I get that part. My concern is the cost effectiveness. Can you tell me if we're doing this opportunity for commercial property, so you've got businesses that are renting that typically, or maybe they're residing or using that property. Since we're no longer considering cost effectiveness, that's going to be an additional cost to do business. The states that are doing this, what are you seeing as far as increases in cost of product, cost to bring things to market?
Mr. Goldberstein.
I don't think we're seeing, as it relates to pace, I don't think we're seeing a specific increase. I think what we're seeing are people that are interested in doing all-electric buildings or net zero buildings, as an example, and those may not pay for themselves over the course of a 20 or 30-year period, but there are still mission-driven developers that want to build those buildings. And so that's really the essence of this amendment to remove the cost-effectiveness standard, is that we are eliminating those types of projects from qualifying for PACE.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you. So you said you're eliminating, I don't think I followed what you just said. You're eliminating those from being able to use PACE. I'm not sure what you said exactly, but my concern is that we're no longer even looking at if it's cost effective, which will drive up the cost of whoever's occupying that building, whether they are building it and occupying it, whether they're building it and leasing it, whoever's going to be occupying it, if we're no longer caring about that this energy efficiency is going to be incredibly expensive. That doesn't matter anymore in Minnesota. We already have, it is one of the most difficult places to do business already in Minnesota because of high tax, high regulation, and other things. And so now we're going to have buildings that are more expensive to occupy if you're leasing it or if you're owning it and using it, because we're not even considering cost effectiveness. So I'm asking, when this model has been implemented across the nation, what kind of increases to products or services are you seeing as a result of this?
Mr. Goldberstein, and maybe I will also, before I pass it to you, does the amendment preclude looking at cost effectiveness at all? Or is that a criteria that is still being looked at within projects? Mr. Goldberstein.
Yes, thank you. So cost effectiveness is certainly still reviewed. And I'll point out that any bank that holds a mortgage on a property must consent before a PACE loan can be written. And so the bank or the mortgage holder will not consent to PACE unless they deem it to be cost effective. So there is another party at the table that has to sign off on this and has to be okay with the special assessment coming onto the property. Further, the energy audit is required. And so I think the notion of these not being cost effective is not completely accurate. I think what the statute the amendment is attempting to do is to ensure that projects are not being excluded from eligibility, and I think I misspoke before, because they likely might not hit the cost effectiveness standard, again, like a net zero building or an all electric building.
Representative Rarick.
So Madam Chair, I'm confused as to why we're striking it from statute if that it doesn't seem to be a hindrance. In the testimony, it said it was, and in practicality, it isn't necessarily, because those are still factors that banks look at to see if this is going to be a good ROI or not, or if this is a cost-effective move or not, or, because they're concerned about getting their investment back. That's what banks look at. So I'm wondering why we're doing that part of striking this from statute if in effect, if it really isn't a factor. I understand if we're going from 20 to 30 years, that makes a whole lot of sense, but I don't understand striking cost effectiveness from this bill, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from members? Seeing none, any final comments from bill author?
No, Your Honor, I appreciate your support. I think it's a
Your
great
Honor.
bill, and, well, excuse me, I did say Your Honor.
I like it. It's okay.
Well, it looks like I'm in court, and I'm usually speaking that way in court. So, Madam Chair, how about that? I appreciate your support and the rest of the committee. Thank you.
Great. And with that, the bill is laid over.